The U.S. Senate confirmed Russell Vought as director of the White House Office of Management and Budget. The OMB is at the center of a contentious effort to freeze federal funding for aid programs. Here to tell us more is Kethevane Gorjestani, our foreign editor and our former White House correspondent. Hello to you, Kethevane. First of all, tell us a bit more about Russell Vought and what his role will be.
Well, the first thing to say is that his confirmation was pretty controversial, and the Democrats really tried to block it as long as they could, going all 30 hours of debate. And Chuck Schumer, the Senate minority leader, had this to say. He said, putting the most radical nominee with the most extreme agenda to the most important agency in Washington is a triple-header disaster for the American people. So it sort of gives you an idea of how the Democrats at least see him. And you have to remember that the Office of Management and Budget often goes under the radar. You don't usually talk about it, but it does hold the key.
Traditionally nonpartisan, right?
It's traditionally nonpartisan, and it also holds the key to basically everything the White House does, developing the budget, the policy priorities, the rulemaking to implement those policies. And a Vought has already served in that job in the first Trump administration. And since then, he's called the OMB the president's air traffic control system, arguing that it should be powerful enough to override agencies' bureaucracies. So you see how he sees that as sort of the arm of the president, the weapon of the president. And he's also defended the theory of impoundment. The tradition is that Congress holds the purse strings, meaning that they decide where to allocate taxpayers' money, and the president is not supposed to override that. The impoundment theory goes specifically on that, saying that basically the president can decide to override the decision of Congress. He's also openly pushed for Christian nationalism, arguing that, yes, separation of church and state, but no separation of Christianity from its influence on government and society. A lot of these sort of theories and ideas put out in Project 2025, of which he has been reportedly one of the main architects writing that project.
Yeah, Project 2025, difficult to sum up, but I'm going to ask you to do it anyway. Help us and our viewers understand why this project is so controversial.
Look, this project, first of all, is longer than 900 pages, so not a lot of people have actually read the whole thing. It came out in 2023, but gained sort of popularity, if you will, during the election campaign in 2024. It's 900 pages of hard-line conservative policy, but it was meant openly to serve as a blueprint for whoever became the next Republican president, in this case, Donald Trump. And it was written by a lot of members of the Heritage Foundation, which is one of the main conservative groups, with the help of other people like Russell Vought and others who are now part of the Trump administration. During 2024, it was seen as so radical that Donald Trump and his campaign team tried to distance themselves from Project 2025, Donald Trump saying that he hadn't read it, that he had nothing to do with it, and that no one that he was working with had anything to do with it. Now, if you look at Project 2025, obviously it's a lot of the stuff is long-standing conservative policy, but there are also things that are a little bit less conventional that were outlined in that document, like, for example, reclassifying federal employees in order to make it easier to fire them and then replace them by loyalists to Donald Trump. So it is really something that was meant to be a base for the next Republican president. That's what it was meant to be when those people wrote it.
So Trump had tried to distance himself 3 weeks into his administration. Are we seeing Project 2025 manifest itself in any ways?
Look, of the more than 50 executive orders and other moves that Donald Trump has done, as I said, there are things that are traditional conservative policies, but there are dozens of elements that seem pretty much inspired by Project 2025, especially when it comes to culture wars and to the weakening of the federal government. So the ban on transgender people serving in the military, military, the end of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, the DEI programs that Donald Trump has gone after, recognizing only two sexes, but also that federal hiring freeze and federal aid freeze that you were talking about. Those are things that were a part of Project 2025. Other things like suspending the U.S. refugee assistance programs or suspending USAID, those were also things that were written out in Project 2025. Donald Trump and his White House team now are still trying to distance themselves from Project 2025. There are some things, some radical things that they have not touched upon yet, at least, but there are things on which they have gone even further than Project 2025. For example, this idea of mass deportation, that is going beyond what Project 2025 was calling for. The end of birthright citizenship, that was also not in Project 2025. And I was talking about USAID. Project 2025 wanted to sort of streamline it, reduce it. Donald Trump is going into folding it into the State Department, sort of doing away completely with it. And as I said, a lot of people, not just Russell Vought, but for example, the border czar, Tom Homan, there are a lot of people that contributed to Project 2025 that are today in very important positions in the Trump administration. And I guess we'll see going into the long term how much of Project 2025 will transpire in the policies of Donald Trump.
All right, Kethevane, thank you very much. Kethevane Gorjestani, France 24's foreign editor.